On a seemingly peaceful flight, a resilient flight attendant, a single mother burdened with life, lost her composure. In just a brief moment, she accidentally slapped a boy sitting in first class. Unexpected adversity? A slip of fate? But deeper than that slap is a silent question that everyone has experienced. If it were you, exhausted, burdened with responsibilities, trying to keep everything from collapsing, are you sure you wouldn't collapse in that fateful moment? It turns out that the line between restraint and explosion is frighteningly small. And when the boy's father, a powerful billionaire, called her, it was not only a call of power, but also a choice of the human heart. Will you run away from your mistakes or face them? Will you believe that you still deserve forgiveness? We invite you to step into the story where every small decision can change a person's life. If you find the story touching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to accompany us on the next emotional journey. The sound came first sharp, sudden, unmistakable. A single, clean slap echoing through the quiet luxury of first class. For a split second, the entire cabin at 36,000 feet froze. It wasn't the kind of noise people expected in this space. Up here, passengers were used to the hum of the engines, the soft rustle of newspapers, the click of laptop keys, the gentle clink of ice and crafted cocktails. What they were not used to was the sound of someone's hand striking a child's face. Olivia Reed stood in the aisle, her right hand still suspended mid-air, trembling. Her fingertips tingled. Her throat tightened. The boy sitting in seat 3C, Jayden Cole, slowly lifted his hand to his cheek. A faint red mark bloomed across his skin. He didn't cry. He didn't gasp. He didn't even look at her. He simply bowed his head. The silence that followed felt heavier than the pressurized cabin itself. From 2A, a corporate lawyer in a navy suit jerked upright, startled. From 1D, a woman with pearl earrings lowered her cocktail, her eyes widening. Even the flight's soft jazz playlist coming from someone's noise-canceling headphones seemed to fade out, as if the moment swallowed it whole. Olivia's chest rose and fell, her breath shaky. I, I didn't mean I wasn't, she stammered, unable to piece a full sentence together. Her voice sounded foreign in her own ears, dry, strained, off balance. A young flight attendant stationed at the galley, Mark Williamson, instinctively stepped forward. Olivia. What happened? He whispered, glancing quickly from her to the boy. Olivia swallowed. Her mouth felt desert dry. He stood up. I was trying to keep him safe. I didn't mean to hit him. Her lips trembled around the words. Jayden kept his face turned toward the window, toward the endless sweep of clouds painted in the soft afternoon light. His eyes shimmered, but not a single tear fell. The restraint in his expression made the entire situation feel even heavier, like a small storm he refused to unleash. From across the aisle, a voice sliced through the tension. Well, someone finally said what needed to be said. It was her Victoria Langford seat 2D, famous among flight crews for her complaints, her demands, her trademark superiority. Victoria crossed her legs, smoothed her designer skirt, and continued in a tone sweetened with poison. I told you something was wrong the moment he sat here. First class isn't exactly for everyone. A murmur of discomfort rippled through the rows. A man in 1A shot her a sharp look. Ma'am, that's enough. But Victoria only lifted one perfectly plucked eyebrow. I'm just saying what we're all thinking, she added, shrugging. A few passengers looked away, ashamed to meet her eye, ashamed perhaps that a small part of what she implied sat rooted in their own unspoken biases. Olivia's stomach twisted. Her pulse thumped in her ears steady, spiraling, too loud. She had been a flight attendant for nearly 18 years. She'd dealt with drunken passengers, emergencies, turbulence, medical scares, crying infants, angry business travelers, and everything in between. But she had never laid a hand on a passenger, not even by accident. Her mind tried to replay the moment. But everything blurred together, the boy rising, the turbulence shaking the plane, the conflict with Victoria earlier, her own exhaustion clouding her judgment. How had her hand flown up? How had she crossed that line? Jayden shifted in his seat, still silent. The boy had a presence that didn't fit his age, too calm, too controlled, as though he'd learned long ago that the world didn't give him the same space to be emotional as it did for others. His silence hurt more than any outcry could have. At the front of the cabin, the curtain rustled. The cabin supervisor, Elena Torres, stepped out. She had the expression of someone already aware something was wrong, her eyes narrowing when she took in the scene. "Everything all right here?" she asked carefully. Victoria scoffed. "Oh, everything is definitely not all right. Your colleague just struck that boy." Elena's head snapped toward Olivia. Olivia felt her knees weaken. "Elena," she whispered. "I swear I didn't mean ma'am," Elena said gently, turning to Jayden. "Are you okay?" Jayden nodded without looking away from the window. "Yes, ma'am," he said softly. "I'm fine." But fine was not the word anyone would have used. From row one, someone finally spoke what the others had only dared to think. "Where's his dad?" "Someone should call his parents." A different passenger offered. "Is his guardian on board?" Before Olivia could respond, Mark leaned down and whispered to her, voice barely audible. "Liv, I think you should know. That boy, that's Jayden Cole." She blinked, confused. So Mark swallowed. So his father is Daniel Cole. Olivia felt a faint dizziness ripple up her spine. "Daniel. Cole," she repeated, the name tumbling out awkwardly. Mark nodded slowly. Yeah, that Daniel Cole, founder of Cole Horizon. Billionaire. One of the airline's highest tier VIPs. It was as if the temperature in the cabin dropped 10 degrees. Olivia's breath stopped just for a moment. Daniel Cole wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just influential. He was one of the most powerful black CEOs in the country. A man who had turned a small fintech startup into a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse. A man whose story was told in business schools. A man the media followed. A man investors listened to. A man the airline treated like royalty. A man whose only son she had just slapped. Olivia felt her heart sink somewhere she couldn't reach. She stared at her trembling hands, unable to recognize them. A strange, hollow ringing filled her ears. Someone would report this. Someone might have recorded it. Someone would talk about it the second they landed. Her career already hanging by threads she never admitted. Out loud felt like it was collapsing in real time. Mark touched her elbow discreetly. "We'll figure this out," he whispered, though his eyes said something different, something heavier. The PA chime sounded suddenly, making a few passengers flinch. "Flight attendants." The captain's voice came through. "Please prepare for early descent into Los Angeles." Olivia's stomach twisted again. Descent, landing, consequences. Victoria leaned back smugly, crossing her arms. "Let's hope the airline still exists after Daniel Cole is done with them," she muttered. Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, swallowing hard. She didn't know what awaited her on the ground. She didn't know how she would explain. She didn't even know how to forgive herself. All she knew was that everything, absolutely everything, had just changed. Long before the slap echoed through the first-class cabin, before the red mark bloomed on Jayden's cheek, before Olivia Reed felt the floor of her life begin to crumble beneath her, there had been a morning. Just a quiet, ordinary morning, though nothing about it felt quiet to her. The sun hadn't come up yet when Olivia pushed open the door to her small apartment in Newark, New Jersey. The hallway light flickered as it always did, casting a weak glow across peeling beige walls. She balanced a grocery bag on one hip, digging for her keys with the other hand. Her fingers brushed past a half-empty pill bottle, a pack of tissues, and the worn leather of her wallet before finally landing on cold metal. Inside, the apartment was as she left it, dim and still. Too still. Her mother's oxygen machine hummed from the bedroom, a steady mechanical rhythm that had become the backdrop of their lives. Olivia slipped off her shoes and padded softly across the living room floor. Careful not to wake her. "Mama," she whispered, pushing the door open just enough to peek inside. Her mother, Evelyn Reed lay on her side, bundled in quilts despite the warm air. Her breathing rattled just slightly, another reminder of the heart condition that had steadily taken more from her year after year. Olivia stepped closer, brushing a hand over her mother's forehead. "You're okay?" she murmured. "I'm home." Evelyn stirred, but did not fully wake. Olivia exhaled a small sigh of relief. She couldn't afford another hospital visit. Not this month. Maybe not ever again if things didn't change soon. She walked back to the kitchen, unpacking the small pile of groceries she could afford: cereal, milk, a few apples, canned soup, instant coffee, and discount frozen meals. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A sinking feeling hit her before she even looked. The number was familiar, a late notice. Again. She opened the text. "Your bill is past due. If payment is not received by Friday, service may be interrupted." Olivia pinched the bridge of her nose. Friday was 2 days away. Her account had barely enough for rent, let alone another medical bill. She took a slow breath, grounding herself the way her therapist had once taught her, though she hadn't been able to afford sessions in over a year. One breath in, one breath out. It didn't help. She sat at the edge of the kitchen table, staring at the photo taped to the fridge. A smiling 8-year-old girl stood in front of a school mural, her curls bouncing, her eyes bright. Her daughter, Hannah. Her ex-husband had custody this week. Hannah's autism specialist required therapy twice a week. Therapy Olivia struggled to pay half of. She added it to her mental list of burdens that felt heavier each day. Rent, her mother's medications, therapy costs, a car in constant need of repair, and now the threat of disciplinary cuts in the airline. The weight never stopped pressing. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. City noises drifted in the world moving on, uncaring of the battles happening behind closed doors. Olivia's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from her supervisor reminding her of her shift. "Report to JFK Terminal 8, Gate 22. 4-day trip. Your crew meeting is at 6 Euro sharp?" She checked the clock. It was already 4:32. No time to rest, no time to think, no time to let herself feel everything that clawed at her chest. She dressed quickly, hair pulled into a tight bun, a touch of foundation under her eyes to hide the exhaustion. Crisp uniform straightened in the mirror. She looked almost put together, almost steady, almost like the version of herself she remembered from 5 years ago. But her eyes betrayed her. They looked tired, hollow around the edges. She touched the collar of her blouse and whispered to herself, "Hold it together. Olivia, just hold it together today." Her mother stirred as she passed the bedroom again. "Baby?" "You're leaving," Evelyn whispered, voice raspy. Olivia stepped inside, forcing a soft smile. "I'll be back in a few days, Mama. Mrs. Thompson will check on you while I'm away." Her mother reached for her hand, gripping it with surprising strength. "Don't push yourself too hard," Evelyn said. "You look tired." Olivia squeezed her mother's hand gently. "I'm okay," she lied. "I just need to get through this week." "You've been saying that for years," Evelyn murmured. Olivia paused, swallowing the truth of that statement. Then she tucked the quilt around her mother and kissed her forehead. "Rest. Mama. I'll call you when I land." As she stepped out into the cool, pre-dawn air, she felt the familiar knot forming in her stomach, an unease she had learned to ignore. Streetlights glowed softly along the sidewalk as she hurried to her aging Honda Civic. The car coughed twice before the engine turned over. "Come on, old girl," she whispered. "Just get me through this week, too." The drive to JFK was quiet. Too quiet. Olivia replayed her mental to-do list, her worries, her fears. Her fingers drummed the steering wheel. Her heart raced in a way she had grown used to. By the time she reached the airport employee lot, dawn was just beginning to soften the sky. She stretched stiffly before walking toward the terminal. Inside, JFK buzzed with its usual morning energy pilots striding with purpose, passengers checking bags, crew members greeting each other with practiced smiles. Olivia slipped into the break room where the cabin crew briefing was set to begin. Mark was already there, sipping coffee. You okay? Liv, he asked, noticing the tension in her shoulders. She forced a small laugh. Yeah, just tired. Long night. Mark didn't press. He knew better than to ask when Olivia didn't offer details. Instead, he handed her a cup of coffee. Extra cream, no sugar, just the way you like. She nodded gratefully. Even here, with colleagues who respected her. Olivia often felt she carried an invisible weight that no one could see, a weight that never let her fully rest. As Elena, the supervisor, entered the room and began running through safety procedures and passenger lists, Olivia glanced down at her crew manifest. A name stood out, Jayden Cole, seat 3C. She blinked, but said nothing. A child traveling alone? She had handled dozens over the years. She couldn't have known that in a few hours. The name would take on a meaning that would unravel everything she thought she could control. After the meeting, the crew walked together toward the jet bridge. Mark nudged her gently. Hey, Liv. Let's just try to get through today with our sanity. Okay. She managed a faint smile. I'll do my best. As they stepped onto the aircraft, the cabin lights glowed warm and soft, welcoming the day's first wave of passengers. Olivia straightened pillows, adjusted headrests, checked the galley, and took a deep breath. Her life felt like a series of fragile balances, always on the edge, always one unexpected moment away from tipping. If Olivia had known the way the day would spiral, if she had known what her exhaustion, her worries, and her breaking point would lead her to do, maybe she would have taken one more breath before stepping aboard. But she didn't know. All she knew was that she had a job to do, a family to support, a world of responsibilities resting on her shoulders, and she would keep going because people like her always did. She didn't yet realize how close she already was to that invisible line, the one she would cross thousands of feet above the ground, in a moment that would change everything. The moment boarding began, Olivia slipped into the rhythm her body knew by memory alone. She welcomed passengers with the same warm tone she had practiced for years. She adjusted bags in overhead bins, pointed people to their seats, and moved down the aisle with practiced grace. But beneath her polished exterior, her heartbeat felt slightly out of tune, fluttering whenever she thought about home. Bills, her mother's labored breathing, or Hannah's upcoming therapy appointment. Still, she kept smiling. She always did. A little after the first grade families boarded, a teenage boy stepped into the aircraft with a quiet composure that didn't match his age. He wore a plain gray hoodie, loose jeans, and clean sneakers. Nothing flashy, nothing entitled. His posture held a kind of careful restraint, like someone who had learned early how to move through the world without drawing unnecessary attention. Good morning, Olivia said gently. Welcome aboard. The boy nodded once, eyes lowering politely. Thank you, ma'am. His voice was soft, almost too soft for the clamorous shuffle of boarding passengers behind him. She glanced at his boarding pass. First class right this way. Sweetheart. He walked down the aisle with quiet purpose, settling into seat 3C. Olivia noticed the way he placed his small backpack under the seat. Careful, deliberate, like he didn't want it to disturb anyone. He pulled out a slim book shortly after and began reading. He was alone, but he didn't seem nervous, just contained. A few minutes later, Victoria Langford appeared, trailing perfume and impatience. She glanced at Olivia as though she expected the universe to part for her arrival. Olivia offered a polite smile anyway. Morning, Ms. Langford. No champagne yet. Victoria huffed. We've barely started boarding. We'll begin beverage service as soon as the aisle clears. Olivia replied with practiced moderation. Victoria clicked her tongue and strutted to her seat only 2 rows ahead of Jayden. The moment she saw him, her lips tightened. A child in first class. Fantastic, she muttered. Olivia bit her tongue. The cabin filled quickly. Business travelers, an elderly couple heading to Los Angeles for a family reunion, a professor reviewing lecture notes, and a woman clutching a travel pillow like it might dissolve if she let go. People weren't always kind when traveling, but today's group seemed calmer than most. Except for Victoria. Olivia took a deep breath as she closed the forward door. Her focus sharpened. Safety checks, equipment verification, crew signals, everything was routine. But the tension in her shoulders refused to uncoil. After takeoff, the plane leveled, and first class began to settle into its usual hush. Soft lights, soft blankets, soft voices, a quiet world of expensive calm floating above the clouds. Olivia walked down the aisle to check seatbelts. When she reached row 3, she paused. Jayden sat perfectly still, hands folded over his book. His expression was a mix of concentration and something else, a little bit of loneliness. Maybe, or a little bit of learned discipline. She gave him a reassuring smile. "You doing all right?" "Yes, ma'am. Can I get you anything?" "Juice snack." He hesitated, then said, "Water." "Please, I'll bring it right away." He nodded again, polite to the point of breaking her heart a little. Behind her, she heard a familiar voice. "I've been waiting 12 minutes, Victoria said sharply. "I asked for a refill." Olivia inhaled quietly before turning. "You'll have it in just a moment. Ms. Langford. This is first class, not a budget flight." Olivia's jaw tightened, but her expression remained steady. "I understand. I'll take care of you." She moved to the galley, shoulders tight. Mark stood near the counter, sorting beverage trays. "You good?" he asked, noticing the slight strain on her face. "Fine," she answered quickly. He raised an eyebrow. "Liv, you look like you're breathing needles." She let out a brittle laugh. "It's not the passengers," she murmured. "It's everything else." He didn't press. He just poured water for Jayden and sparkling wine for Victoria, handing the drinks to her. Olivia carried them down the aisle, maintaining her calm posture. As she set the glass on Victoria's tray table, the woman sighed dramatically. Finally, Olivia ignored the sting and moved on. When she reached Jayden, her tone softened. "Here you go." He accepted the cup, fingers brushing the rim lightly. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She lingered for a moment. "If you need anything at all, just press the call button." He nodded again. That quiet courtesy of his tugged at her more than she wanted to admit. She walked back to the galley, trying to shake off the fatigue pressing behind her eyes. The next hour passed smoothly. Meal service was orderly, passengers relaxed. Jayden read silently, occasionally gazing out the window with the thoughtful stare of someone older than his years. Then turbulence hit. Not severe, but enough to jolt the cabin. A quick drop, a rumble, the overhead bins rattling for a moment. Passengers gasped. Drinks trembled. A fork clattered against a plate. Olivia steadied herself with one hand against the aisle wall. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice chimed through the speakers. "Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We expect light turbulence for the next few minutes." Most passengers complied immediately. But in row 2, Victoria shot up from her seat. "This is unacceptable, Miss Langford, please sit," Olivia said firmly. "For your safety." Victoria scoffed and took a single defiant step into the aisle. At that exact moment, the aircraft dipped again. Jayden startled, rocked by the movement. His book slipped from his hands and fell to the floor. Instinctively, he stood, reaching down for it just as Victoria stumbled backward toward him. Olivia moved quickly, thinking he was rising in panic. "Jayden, sit." Another jolt shook the plane, and in that split second, strained, overwhelmed, exhausted, Olivia reached for him. Her hand moved faster than her judgment. She meant to steady him. She meant to guide him back into his seat. But her open palm struck his cheek instead. The contact was sharp, clean, and louder than she realized. His head jerked to the side. The book slid away. Victoria froze mid-rant. The entire cabin stilled. Olivia's breath shattered. Jayden, she whispered, horror blooming in her chest. He slowly sat down, expression unreadable. The turbulence eased, leaving behind a heavier storm no one could predict. Olivia's pulse throbbed painfully. Shame surged through her, hot and disorienting. She opened her mouth to apologize, but the words tangled in her throat. Passengers stared. A few whispered. Victoria smirked, sensing drama she could weaponize. Mark appeared at Olivia's side, voice hushed with alarm. What happened? She shook her head, unable to articulate anything beyond a trembling. I didn't. Jayden looked out the window again, hands folded tightly in his lap. And Olivia felt something inside her crack. Every burden she had carried, every responsibility, every fear, every sleepless night seemed to collapse into that single horrifying moment. She had crossed a line she never imagined crossing, and she knew instantly that nothing about this flight, or her future, would be simple now. The cabin felt smaller after the slap. The air seemed heavier, as if the oxygen itself resisted entering Olivia's lungs. She stood frozen, her hand drawn back to her chest, fingers curled involuntarily. Every instinct inside her screamed to undo what had just happened, to rewind time, to catch her own arm before it moved. But time didn't move backward. It only pressed forward, merciless and unbothered. Passengers shifted uneasily in their seats. Their murmurs floated through the space in quiet waves, hushed, startled, judgmental. The unsettled energy rippled outward, touching every row as if the plane itself had absorbed the shock. Jayden remained unmoving, his cheek marked with the faint outline of her mistake. Something about the way he stared out the window, unmoving, felt like a mirror she wasn't ready to face. Calm. Too calm. Not the calm of someone untroubled, but of someone who had learned early that their emotions weren't welcome. Mark hovered beside her, whispering urgently, Olivia. Liv. Talk to me. What exactly happened? His voice sounded tight, strained by fear and confusion. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Shame coiled inside her like a living thing. I misjudged. He stood up. I reacted. I don't know. I didn't mean to hurt him. Mark exhaled shakily, rubbing his forehead. Okay, let me talk to Elena. He walked forward quickly, leaving Olivia standing in the aisle with her thoughts spinning like loose wires. Victoria took that moment to lean sideways in her seat, her lips curling into a slow, satisfied smile. Well, this is certainly more entertainment than my flight usually offers, she said, loud enough for several rows to hear. Maybe the airline should retrain its staff, or screen them better. Her words cut in a place Olivia wished she could shield. Not because Victoria mattered, but because the passengers around her were listening, nodding subtly, whispering, making their own assumptions. Olivia swallowed hard and stepped toward Jayden. Sweetheart. I'm so sorry, she whispered, keeping her tone gentle. Are you feeling okay? He didn't turn. His hands clasped together tightly, knuckles white. The tips of his sneakers pressed into the floor, and everything about his posture looked tense, coiled, braced against the world. I'm fine, he murmured. The words were barely audible, soft as a breath, yet they carried an ache that pierced through her. From the corner of her eye, Olivia noticed a woman 2 rows ahead lift her phone slightly, screen pointed in their direction. Olivia's stomach twisted. Please don't record, she said, stepping forward quietly but firmly. The woman lowered the phone with an expression that said she wasn't done judging. I just wanted a record, she muttered, in case he needs someone to speak for him. Olivia forced her voice to remain steady. I understand, but please trust us to take care of him. Trust us. She felt the irony of the words sting her tongue. Elena appeared suddenly, her walk brisk and purposeful. She signaled for Mark to stay with the passengers before giving Olivia a look that was equal parts concern and command. Come with me, Elena said softly. They stepped into the front galley where the hum of the engines muted the cabin noise. Elena crossed her arms, eyes fixed on Olivia's face. "Explain what happened," she said quietly. Olivia inhaled deeply, the words trembling in her throat. "He stood up during turbulence. I reached to steady him. My hand moved wrong, too fast. I didn't intend." Elena raised a hand gently. "I know you, Olivia. I know how careful you are, but the fact remains this is serious." The words landed heavily, but not unexpectedly. "I know," Olivia whispered. Elena hesitated, lowering her voice even further. "The boy, his last name?" "Cole." "He's connected." Olivia nodded once. "I know who he is." "No," Elena replied. "You don't." "His father isn't just wealthy. He's influential at the federal level. He donates to aviation safety committees. He consults with the airline board. The kind of man corporate listens to." Olivia leaned against the counter, her knees weakening. "So this could end me," she said quietly. Elena didn't answer. She didn't need to. A soft chime from the cabin interrupted them. A passenger had pressed the call button. Elena gave her a firm but compassionate look. "Stay here a moment. Breathe. Don't approach any guests until we sort out what to say." Olivia nodded, and Elena returned to the aisle. Olivia stayed behind, gripping the metal ledge beside her to keep from trembling. Her vision blurred for a moment, not from tears, but from the crushing weight of consequences she could already feel forming. A memory flashed, her mother whispering, "Don't push yourself too hard." Her daughter asking, Mom, are you coming to my school event this Friday?" Everything she carried, everything she fought to hold together suddenly felt terrifyingly fragile. After several minutes, when she regained some steadiness, she peeked into the cabin again. The atmosphere felt charged, a mix of indignation, curiosity, discomfort. She saw Mark speaking softly to a couple in row 4. She saw Victoria flipping through a magazine with theatrical disinterest, clearly enjoying the drama she had helped inflame. And she saw Jayden, still quiet, still folded into himself like he wanted to disappear behind the window. Olivia couldn't bear it. She approached slowly, stopping just beside his seat but not sitting. "Jayden," she said gently, "can we talk for a moment? Only if you want to." He didn't reply, but his shoulders dropped slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. She lowered her voice to a whisper meant only for him. "I'm truly sorry. I should have handled the situation differently. You did nothing wrong. This time." He spoke. "I know I didn't. Not defensive, not angry, just steady." Olivia blinked. "You're not upset with me. I don't get upset." He replied, "I shut down. That's what my doctor calls it." The pieces clicked in her mind. His composure, his silence, his reaction to turbulence, his restraint. "You're autistic," she said softly. Jayden nodded once, eyes still fixed on the horizon outside. It's easier for people if I don't react," he murmured. "My dad says I'm not responsible for others' discomfort, but I don't want to make trouble." The sentence hollowed her chest in an unexpected, piercing way. He reminded her of Hannah, the way her daughter shrank into herself when teachers misunderstood her. How she learned to avoid eye contact because it was easier than being judged for not smiling. Olivia's voice wavered. "You didn't cause trouble. Like, you didn't deserve any of this." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." He glanced at her for the first time since the slap, just enough for her to see the flicker of hurt he tried so hard to hide. "Will I get you in trouble?" he asked quietly. The question pierced her deeper than anything Victoria had said. "No," she lied softly. "This isn't your fault." But she knew the truth. The moment the plane touched the runway, her life would change. Passengers would talk. Phones would come out. Corporate would investigate. A powerful father would demand answers. And nothing she said on this aircraft would erase the mistake she made in a split-second moment of exhaustion. Her hands trembled again. She curled them into fists to stop the shaking. In the front of the cabin, the intercom clicked. Flight attendants, the captain said. Please prepare for a call to the flight deck. Elena looked toward Olivia, her expression tightening. He wants to talk to you, she said quietly. Olivia's heart dropped, because she knew the captain was calling about one thing only. The boy in 3C, and what she had done. Olivia's steps felt strangely heavy as she made her way toward the front of the cabin. Every inch of the aisle seemed longer than it had an hour earlier. The murmurs behind her followed like faint echoes she couldn't fully escape. She felt the stares on her back, the unspoken judgments settling over her skin like dust she couldn't brush off. Elena waited at the curtain, her posture firm but not unkind. He wants to see you now, she murmured. The galley felt colder than usual as Olivia stepped inside. The door to the cockpit was ajar, something that never happened except under unusual circumstances. She raised her hand and knocked gently. A voice answered. Come in. She pushed the door open. Captain Harrison Brooks sat in the left seat, headset resting around his neck. Dark eyes fixed on her with a calm that somehow made her more anxious. He was a seasoned pilot, known for handling unpredictable situations with steady discipline. The first officer, Carla Nguyen, glanced over her shoulder before returning her attention to the controls. Close the door and sit, the captain said quietly. Olivia obeyed, sinking into the small jump seat behind them. The leather felt stiff beneath her. Tell me what happened back there, Captain Brooks said. Her throat tightened. There was turbulence. She began softly. A passenger stood up. I reached to guide him back. My hand moved too fast, and I struck him without meaning to. Captain Brooks nodded slowly, as though weighing each of her words with precision. That boy is traveling alone, he said. You know that, of course. Yes, sir. And his family, he asked. I know who they are. A low hum filled the space, the engines vibrating through the floor panels. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Captain Brooks leaned back and rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. I've received a radio message from operations, he said. Someone in first class contacted the ground. Olivia felt a tremor pass through her chest. About me. Yes, her stomach dropped. The captain continued. They didn't specify the full details, but they used the phrase physical misconduct. Ground control forwarded it to corporate liaison. The airline's executive team is aware something occurred. Olivia stared at the floor. She couldn't speak. Captain Brooks studied her expression carefully. I want you to understand something, he said gently. We all know your record. You've been here nearly 2 decades. Not a single passenger complaint on file. Not one. That speaks volumes. Olivia blinked hard, fighting the pressure behind her eyes. But what happened today, he added, is serious. I know, she whispered. Carla glanced back briefly, offering a soft, sympathetic look before returning to her controls. But I need you to breathe, the captain said. We're going to handle this properly. That means honesty and composure. She lifted her gaze. I've never struck a passenger before, Olivia said, voice small. And especially not a child. I believe you, Captain Brooks replied. The words felt like a thin rope thrown to a drowning swimmer. Not enough to pull her out, but enough to keep her afloat for another moment. What do you recommend I do now? Olivia asked quietly. For now, he answered. You will remain away from the passengers. Stay here or in the galley unless there is an emergency. Elena and Mark will take over cabin duties. A subtle ache twisted inside her. Being told to step back from the passengers she had taken care of for years felt like a punishment before the real punishment arrived. And what about the boy, Olivia asked, unable to hide her worry. The captain hesitated. Elena is checking on him. He answered. But we've already contacted his guardian. The airline requires it when an unaccompanied minor is involved in any unusual situation. Olivia's breath hitched. His father, she whispered. Captain Brooks nodded. He's been notified. She felt the world tilt slightly. Oh, Daniel Cole was somewhere, receiving a message saying that a flight attendant had hit his son. She imagined him reading it. Imagined the cold fury of a father, especially one accustomed to protecting a child who already faced unfair judgments from the world. Her voice came out faint. Did he respond? The captain's lips pressed into a thin line. He asked to speak with me directly when we land. He wants details. Naturally. Olivia closed her eyes. For a brief second, she felt as though she were falling. Not through air, not from altitude, but inward into a place she had tried to avoid for years. A quiet place where doubt had room to whisper. How will you fix this? How will you explain? How will you survive what comes next? We'll get through the flight, Captain Brooks said gently. One step at a time. His tone reminded her faintly of her mother, calm, steady, grounding. We're beginning initial descent soon, he added. Stay prepared, and whatever happens, stay truthful. She nodded, stood slowly, and stepped out of the cockpit. The door clicked shut behind her. The galley lights cast a pale glow across the metal surfaces, making everything look sharper than usual. She leaned against the counter, rubbing her temples. Her pulse thudded with a constant, uneven rhythm. Elena slipped in a moment later, her expression thoughtful. How did it go? Elena asked. He said I should stay out of the cabin, Olivia murmured. That's for now, Elena replied gently. Just until we land. Olivia felt the shame twist deeper. How's he doing? She whispered. Elena hesitated before answering. He's quiet, she said. Not shaken, but withdrawn. I asked him if he felt pain. He said no. He said he's used to sudden reactions from people. Olivia's throat burned. He shouldn't have to be used to that. Elena nodded. I agree. A long silence settled between them. You know, Elena added softly, you're not a bad person. You had a moment. A terrible moment. But you're not cruel. Olivia stared at the floor. Intent doesn't matter if I harmed him. Elena didn't counter. She simply placed a gentle hand on Olivia's shoulder. We're landing soon. Whatever comes next, you'll face it, one step at a time. Olivia forced a small breath. May I at least speak to him before we land? She asked. Elena shook her head. Not right now. I need to protect him emotionally. And you need to protect yourself until things calm down. Another ache bloomed inside her chest. I understand. The final 20 minutes of descent crept by with agonizing slowness. The aircraft dimmed its cabin lights. The cabin speakers chimed softly with safety reminders. Passengers adjusted their seats, gathered their belongings, whispered final opinions they assumed she couldn't hear. She stayed in the galley, listening to every murmured word from afar. The engines roared as the plane began its approach into Los Angeles. The landing gear deployed with a rumbling thud. The city lights shimmered through the small galley window like scattered gold across the coast. As the wheels touched the runway and the aircraft slowed along the tarmac, Olivia felt her pulse pounding harder than turbulence ever had. She steadied herself against the wall, bracing for what she knew waited beyond those aircraft doors. A father, a CEO, a man with influence and anger in equal measure, and his son, carrying a quiet wound she had caused. When the aircraft finally stopped at the gate, Elena approached her with a careful, steady expression. They're bringing him directly to the private receiving lounge. She said, his father is already there. Olivia's breath caught. You're being escorted, too. The weight of those words settled heavy and cold, because this wasn't just about a mistake anymore. It was about accountability. It was about judgment. It was about a moment that had changed the course of her life. And the next steps would take her directly into the presence of the one person she feared facing the most. The cabin door opened with a soft hiss, the kind that usually signaled relief at the end of a long flight. But for Olivia, the sound felt like an invitation to judgment. The jet bridge beyond looked brighter than she expected, almost harsh. and for a moment her eyes struggled to adjust. Elena touched her arm gently. They're waiting in the private lounge. Just follow me. Olivia nodded, though her legs didn't feel entirely steady. Passengers began gathering their bags, stepping into the aisle with the usual mix of impatience and distraction. Most didn't look in her direction, but a few cast quick glances, sharp, fleeting, and not difficult to interpret. She kept her gaze forward. Mark lingered by the galley, worry etched between his brows. When she passed him, he whispered, "Text me when you're okay." She managed a faint smile. "Thank you." Several passengers ahead moved slowly, clogging the aisle. Olivia and Elena waited near the front, letting the crowd thin. As the last passenger stepped out, the plane finally fell silent. Jayden appeared then, guided gently by a ground staff assistant. He clutched his backpack with both hands, holding it close like a protective shield. His cheek was no longer red, but the memory of it stung Olivia just the same. He looked small. Smaller than he had on the flight, Elena whispered to her. "Let's give him a little space." Olivia didn't argue, but her heart pulled painfully as she watched him step into the jet bridge. Head lowered, shoulders drawn close. The quiet strength he had shown on the flight now looked fragile, as though wearing that calmness had drained too much from him. Once Jayden disappeared from sight, Elena gave a small nod. "Your turn." They stepped onto the jet bridge. The metal walkway creaked faintly under their feet, and the conditioned airport air felt almost too cold after the warm cabin. Olivia pulled her uniform jacket tighter around herself. The moment they reached the terminal entrance, she noticed two airline managers waiting. Their expressions were neutral professional, unreadable, but she felt the shift immediately. This was no longer just a cabin issue, it was official. One of them, a tall man with salt and pepper hair, offered a polite nod. "Ms. Reed, thank you for coming with us. We'll take you directly to the lounge." His tone was respectful, but the underlying message was clear. There were procedures now, formal steps, layers of accountability. They walked down a quieter corridor separate from the passengers. The polished floor reflected the overhead lights and clean lines, but Olivia barely noticed. Her thoughts spiraled too fast. What will I say to him? Will he even let me speak? Did Jayden tell him everything? Did he think I hurt his son on purpose? Her heart kept pace with her footsteps, rapid and uneven. As they passed a set of windows, airplanes glittered under the afternoon sun. Silver bodies lined up like enormous sleeping birds. Normally she loved that view. It reminded her why she loved the sky. But today, it just felt like part of a life she was losing by the minute. Elena walked close beside her. "I'll be there with you," she said softly. "You won't be alone," Olivia whispered. "Thank you." After a few more turns, they approached a frosted glass door with a small brass sign, "Private Executive Lounge." The manager paused before opening it. "Ms. Reed, Mr. Cole has requested to speak with you privately. We will be nearby, but he specifically asked for no recording devices, no additional personnel, and no public presence." Her chest tightened. Daniel Cole wasn't just wealthy. He was famously private. His word carried weight most people could never touch, and if he wanted a closed room with her, that could mean anything. The manager pushed the door open. Inside, the room was quiet, furnished with soft leather chairs and warm lighting. A tray of bottled water sat untouched on a side table. Jayden stood near the window, arms crossed over his chest, looking out at the runway. He seemed smaller in this room than he had even on the plane. But what froze Olivia wasn't the boy. It was the man standing several feet away with his back partially turned tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. The aura around him felt controlled, powerful, like someone who had spent years in high-stakes environments and learned to command them. Daniel Cole turned. His eyes found her immediately. Dark, intelligent, penetrating, but not furious. As she expected. Instead, his expression held something heavier. Concern, restraint, calculation. A mixture that gave away nothing but conveyed everything. "You're Ms. Reed, he said. His voice was deep, calm, and controlled. Olivia swallowed hard. Yes, sir. You were the attending flight attendant today? Yes. He studied her quietly for several seconds, the type of silence that forced truth to rise on its own. Please sit, he said, gesturing to one of the chairs. Olivia sat slowly. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers intertwined to hide the tremor. Elena remained near the door, standing respectfully, but Daniel raised a hand slightly. I would prefer to speak with Ms. Reed alone. Elena hesitated. With respect, sir. I'm responsible for, I understand, he replied, his tone unwavering. But my request stands. Elena glanced at Olivia, silently asking if she felt safe. Olivia nodded once. The door closed. The room grew even quieter. Daniel walked to the opposite chair and sat down. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. My son told me what happened. He said. Olivia's breath caught. He did, yes. She braced herself. He told me you didn't mean to hit him. The words struck her like a sudden gust of wind. Not because they absolved her, but because she hadn't expected Jayden to defend her to his father. I didn't, she whispered. But intention doesn't erase impact. Daniel nodded slowly, as though he respected that response. I asked my son several questions, he continued. I wanted to understand his experience, not just the facts. Olivia dared to ask how is he feeling? Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. Conflicted, he said. He said he startled you, that he moved when he shouldn't have. But he also said he's used to moments like this, moments where adults react too quickly. A quiet pain flickered across his expression. And that, he added, is something he should not be used to. Olivia lowered her gaze. I wish I could take back what happened. I truly do. Daniel studied her carefully. You look like someone who's been carrying too much for too long. The observation surprised her. It wasn't unkind. It wasn't accusatory. It felt perceptive. Sir, I'm not here to defend myself, Olivia said softly. I just want you to know I'm sorry. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. I can see that. Another quiet moment stretched between them. Then he said something she didn't expect. My son didn't come away from that flight afraid of you. He came away worried about you. Olivia's eyes widened, what Daniel nodded. He said you looked tired like his dad after working too many weeks in a row. His words, not mine. Something warm and painful rose in her chest simultaneously. Daniel folded his hands. I'm not here to ruin your life, Ms. Reed. I'm here to understand what led to a moment like that. Because my son was right. You looked exhausted the moment you stepped off that plane. And exhaustion doesn't come from nowhere. Olivia felt her composure bend, not break, but bend under the weight of truth. She took a quiet breath. If I explain, she said, voice barely above a whisper, will you listen without assuming I'm making excuses? Daniel met her eyes directly. I will listen, he said. Fully? For the first time since the slap, she felt a crack of light inside her chest, because this was not the reaction she had braced for. This was something else, something unexpected, something that might shape everything that came next. Olivia took a slow breath, letting the air settle inside her chest before she spoke. The quiet in the room felt almost sacred, like something fragile might break if she rushed. Daniel waited patiently, his expression unreadable but attentive. Jayden remained near the window, listening without looking at either of them. The soft rumble of airplanes outside filled the silence between heartbeats. I've been working flights for more than half my life, she began. Almost 18 years. I'm used to long shifts. I'm used to stressful passengers. None of that is new to me, and none of it excuses what happened. She paused, fingers pressing lightly against her knees to steady herself. But lately, the weight has been different. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Different how Olivia looked at a spot on the carpet as she gathered her thoughts. My mother is ill. Chronic heart complications. She's on oxygen every day now. I'm her only caregiver. I check on her before and after every trip. She won't move to assisted living, and I can't afford it anyway. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, not interrupting. And my daughter, Olivia continued. She's 8. She's on the autism spectrum. She's gentle, incredibly bright. But school is difficult for her, and I'm trying to keep up with her therapy sessions. But the cost keeps rising. Jayden's posture shifted slightly at the mention of the child. He didn't turn, but he was listening more closely. Olivia exhaled slowly. My ex-husband used to help financially, but he's been cutting back. Says he can't maintain the payments. Says I should adjust. Her voice thinned. I've been working double shifts, picking up red-eye flights, sleeping 4, maybe 5 hours a night. I don't remember the last time I sat down without feeling like I should be using that time to fix one of the thousands of things falling apart. The room stayed still. Even the hum of airport traffic outside seemed to fade. And when the turbulence hit, she whispered. I reacted on instinct. My mind was so foggy. I didn't see clearly. I just reacted. She swallowed, her throat tight. I've replayed the moment 100 times since we landed. I keep thinking, if I had slept an hour more, if I had taken one less shift, if I had noticed how quickly he moved, but it doesn't change what I did. Daniel rested his hands together, his gaze searching her face. You said exhaustion has been different lately, he said. Do you mean physically or emotionally? Olivia gave a soft, sad laugh. Both, and more than that. It's the kind of exhaustion that sits underneath everything you do, the kind that colors every decision, the kind that makes even small mistakes feel enormous because you're afraid you don't have anything left to fix them. She hesitated before adding in a lower voice. You asked my son what he felt. If anyone asked me what I felt in that moment, I'd say I felt like someone who reached their limit without realizing it. Jayden finally turned his head. His eyes met Olivia's for just a moment. There was no accusation in them, only quiet understanding. Daniel followed his son's movement, then returned his gaze to Olivia. You're being honest. He said, that matters. Honesty doesn't undo the harm. No. But it tells me who you are. The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Olivia looked at Jayden, her voice softer now. He deserves better. Children like him, children like my daughter, they carry more than people see. And I contributed to something he might remember as another moment when the world moved too fast against him. That's what I regret most. Jayden shifted his weight, then walked slowly toward them. He stood next to his father, holding the strap of his backpack. He said quietly, I don't blame you. Olivia's breath caught. You should, she whispered. Jayden shook his head. You were scared, he said. People do strange things when they're scared. Daniel watched his son carefully, pride flickering in his eyes. What made you think she was scared? He asked him gently. Jayden answered simply, because she looked like my dad used to look, before he got better at slowing down. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the truth his son had spoken. Olivia wondered what pain hid behind that statement, what pressures Daniel had carried at the height of his company's rise. Daniel turned back to her. Olivia, he said, I came here prepared to fight. I came angry. Any father would be. But my son isn't afraid. He doesn't think you're cruel, and I am not interested in destroying someone who made one mistake in a moment of collapse. Olivia felt something inside her break an emotional shatter that released tears she had fought to hold back. She covered her face with trembling hands. I'm so sorry, she said, voice shaking. Daniel gave her a moment before speaking again. Look at me for a second. She lifted her eyes, tears clinging to her lashes. I grew up in neighborhoods where people didn't get second chances, he said, where one slip shaped your entire life. I built everything I have because one person looked past a mistake I made when I was 17? He paused, letting the words settle. I'm not going to take away your livelihood for one lapse of judgment. But I need to know something. Olivia waited, heart pounding. If you keep working like this, Daniel said gently, will it happen again? Her voice was barely a whisper. No, because I know now that I can't keep pushing myself past the edge. Something has to change. Daniel nodded slowly. Good. Because that's all I needed to hear. Relief washed through her so suddenly her shoulders sagged. She didn't dare hope fully yet, not until she understood what would come next. Daniel stood and walked toward the window. Jayden followed, placing a hand lightly on his father's arm. The gesture looked instinctive, natural, filled with a quiet bond. Daniel turned back to Olivia. You won't lose your job, he said, but you will take time off. Real time. Not a day or two. Enough to breathe, to rest, to take care of your family. Olivia blinked, stunned. You're requesting that I'm insisting on it, Daniel replied. And I will speak to the airline myself. She clasped her hands over her mouth, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to, Daniel said. Just get better, Jayden added. And next time we fly together, maybe you can recommend a good snack. A soft laugh escaped her, the first genuine one in a long time. I think I can do that. For the first time since the incident, Olivia felt something fragile and warm blooming inside her ribcage. Hope, small, but real. The lounge door opened softly as the airline manager stepped back inside. His expression remained careful, professional, but he seemed to pick up on the shift in atmosphere almost instantly. The tension that had hung thick in the room earlier had eased, replaced with something quieter, more contemplative. Mr. Cole, the manager said, we're ready to escort you and your son whenever you're prepared. Daniel nodded but didn't stand yet. He glanced briefly at Olivia, as though making sure their conversation had truly settled before moving on. Jayden slipped the strap of his backpack into place, glancing between the adults with an expression that held more awareness than any teenager should need to carry. Olivia wiped her eyes quickly, though her voice still trembled slightly when she spoke. I appreciate the chance to talk. Both of you, Daniel replied. Conversations like this matter more than people think. Most problems get worse because nobody pauses long enough to see the person behind the mistake. He said it calmly, but the weight behind his words suggested he had lived both sides of that reality. The manager cleared his throat lightly. We'll take care of the necessary paperwork. Miss Reed, you won't need to speak with additional passengers or press. We've ensured privacy. A flicker of anxiety returned at the mention of documentation. Olivia asked quietly. Will I be placed on leave immediately? Yes, the manager said gently. Pending standard follow-up. But Mr. Cole has already spoken with our director. No disciplinary termination will be considered at this time. Daniel didn't show pride in having influence. Instead, he looked almost uncomfortable, as if wishing that fairness didn't require intervention from someone like him. Jayden tugged lightly on his father's sleeve. Dad, can we go now? Yes, Daniel replied, then turned to Olivia. If you ever feel like you're slipping again, talk to someone. Anyone. The people who fall the hardest are usually the ones trying to hold everything up alone. Olivia nodded. I hear you. Daniel offered his hand. She hesitated only a moment before shaking it. His grip was firm, steady, not dominating, simply grounding. Jayden gave her a small wave. Hope your daughter feels better. The kindness of it nearly undid her again. Thank you, Jayden, she said softly. Take care of yourself, too. Father and son left through the lounge doors, accompanied by airport staff. The moment they disappeared down the corridor, the room's quiet pressed in on Olivia like a slowly settling blanket. Elena walked to her side. You okay? No, Olivia admitted, but I think I will be. They stepped out of the lounge together. The hallway beyond was quiet, but tension hummed beneath the walls, the kind that comes from knowing the next steps in a process that can reshape a person's future. As they approached the operations office, Olivia's thoughts drifted again. Images flickered behind her eyes, her daughter drawing shapes on the kitchen table, humming to herself, her mother sitting by the window, hands folded, breathing slowly through the oxygen tube. Bills stacked on the counter, waiting for answers she didn't have yet. Fear whispered under every thought. What if this is the thing that breaks everything? Elena must have sensed her spiraling. She touched her shoulder gently. You're not alone. You'll have support through this. And not just from Daniel Cole. You think the airline will help? They've helped people for less serious reasons, Elena said. But you need to meet them halfway. Don't hide anything. Hiding had always been Olivia's instinct, protecting the pieces of her life, so no one could use them against her. But today had shown her what silence could cost, and how badly she needed to stop carrying everything in secret. Inside the small conference room, a human resources representative waited with a stack of forms. Her voice was calm, steady, as she explained the next steps. You'll be placed on temporary leave, she said. We strongly recommend a wellness evaluation and will connect you with resources. We're not here to punish you. Olivia. We're here to prevent burnout from happening again. The word burnout felt too small for everything she'd been holding. But she nodded. I understand. We'll check in with you in a few days. Take the time you need. When the paperwork was complete, Elena walked her out of the administrative wing. The airport buzzed with the usual mixture of rushing footsteps, rolling luggage, and distant announcements. Life went on around them, indifferent to the turmoil in one woman's chest. Outside the employee exit, they paused. The late afternoon light painted warm streaks across the pavement, catching on the rows of taxis and shuttles waiting at the curb. Elena opened her arms slightly. Come here. Olivia melted into the embrace before she realized she had moved. It felt safe, like being held up by someone who understood what it meant to be tired, all the way down to your bones. When they pulled apart, Elena said, Get home. Rest. Hug your daughter. Have dinner with your mother. Tomorrow isn't the day to fix your whole life, but it is the day you start choosing yourself. Olivia managed a quiet laugh. I'm not good at that. You will be, Elena said confidently. You've survived worse than this. I can see it. After they said goodbye, Olivia walked toward the rideshare area. Each step felt both heavy and relieved, as if she was shedding a weight she had carried for too long, but still fearing what might replace it. When she slid into the back of a car, the driver greeted her warmly. Long day. The gentle tone nearly undid her. She released a breath she didn't know she was holding. You don't know the half of it, she murmured. Sometimes the hardest days bring the most needed changes, the driver said, pulling away from the curb. As the airport shrank behind them, Olivia turned her face toward the window. She watched the sky, streaked with orange and violet. The same sky she had flown beneath for nearly 2 decades. The same sky that had felt like freedom and escape and identity. For the first time in a long while, she didn't think about flight schedules or overtime shifts. She didn't think about struggling through exhaustion or keeping every plate spinning until something shattered. She thought about rest and what it might mean to finally give herself permission to have it. As the city blurred past the glass, a quiet determination began forming in her chest. The kind that wasn't loud or dramatic. The kind that built slowly, softly, like the first deep breath after surviving something too big to name. She whispered to herself, I'll get through this. Not because she believed the path ahead would be simple, but because for the first time in years, someone had looked at her not as a problem to solve, not as an employee to discipline, not as a mother failing to keep up, but as a human being who had reached her limit, and someone had said rest, heal, start again. The car turned onto her street. The familiar row of houses came into view. Something warm pulsed behind her ribs. Home. The rideshare slowed to a gentle stop in front of Olivia's small, weather-worn home. The porch light had automatically switched on, casting a warm halo over the faded wooden steps. The sky above was turning deep blue, pressed with the last traces of daylight. It felt like the kind of evening when the world softened just enough for people to breathe again. Olivia stepped out of the car, thanked the driver, and pulled her bag over her shoulder. Her legs felt heavy, but not from exhaustion alone. The emotional weight of the day clung to her like damp air, thick and insistent. Still, walking toward her front door brought a small flicker of warmth to her chest. This was where her daughter slept, where her mother sat by the window, where life existed in all its imperfect beauty. As she pushed open the door quietly, the familiar scent of lavender and laundry soap greeted her. The hallway light was dim, left on so her daughter would not be startled when she woke during the night. Her mother, Olivia Reed, sat in the living room recliner, oxygen tube resting softly against her cheek. She looked up with tired but loving eyes. "You're home," Gloria said, voice thin but warm. "Yeah?" "Mama." Olivia leaned down to kiss her forehead. Flight got in a little late. Her mother studied her carefully. "Long day," Olivia smiled faintly. "That's one way to put it." Gloria squeezed her hand, gaze full of something deeper than curiosity. A mother's knowing. "We'll talk after you settle yourself." Olivia nodded. She peeked into her daughter's room next. Little Zoe lay curled under her quilt, holding her stuffed penguin the way she always did, tucked under her chin, wings pressed against her cheek. The soft whir of the small fan at the corner of the room filled the silence. Olivia sank to her knees beside the bed and brushed a hand across her daughter's hair. Zoe didn't stir, but the closeness steadied Olivia. Children had a way of anchoring a person back to their most human instincts. She whispered, "Mommy's here." After a moment, she eased herself up and returned to the living room. Gloria had already shifted slightly, gesturing to the couch. "Sit with me," she said. Olivia sat down slowly, rubbing her palms together as if preparing for a conversation she wasn't entirely ready to have. Her mother watched her with eyes that had always been able to see more than Olivia ever admitted. "Something's wrong." Olivia exhaled softly. Something happened on the flight. Something bad? Olivia hesitated. Yes, her mother didn't rush her. She simply waited, breathing quietly through the oxygen tube, patience radiating from every line on her face. Olivia began speaking, not quickly, not defensively, just honestly. She described the turbulence. The moment Jayden stood up, the sharp, instinctive reaction, the shock afterward. She spoke about Daniel Cole's presence, his calm, his questions. She shared the unexpected grace he had shown her, and how it had left her both relieved and shaken. Gloria listened without interruption, her eyes steady. When Olivia finished, her hands trembled slightly from the release. A silence floated between them, soft but weighty. Finally, Gloria spoke. "You've been carrying the world on your shoulders for too long." "Mama, no," Gloria said gently. "Let me say this." Olivia closed her mouth and waited. "I've watched you run yourself empty trying to keep everything together. You take care of me. You take care of Zoe. You try to keep your job, your dignity, your faith in yourself." Gloria's voice wavered slightly, but her expression stayed strong. "But no one can hold that much without breaking somewhere." Olivia looked down at her hands. "I should have been better. I should have reacted differently." "You're human," her mother said firmly. "You made a mistake in a moment of fear, not cruelty, not recklessness. Fear?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes again. Her mother reached out, fingertips grazing Olivia's wrist. "What matters now is what you do next." "I don't know where to begin." "Start by resting." Gloria smiled softly. "You've forgotten how—" Olivia let out a shaky laugh. "Resting doesn't fix the bills." "No, but exhaustion doesn't fix them either." The truth of it struck deeper than Olivia expected. She leaned back into the couch cushions, letting her head fall against the backrest. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to truly relax her muscles. The release felt foreign, like something her body didn't quite know how to accept. Gloria studied her quietly. This man, Jayden's father, is he trustworthy? Olivia thought for a moment. He surprised me. He was calm, thoughtful. He didn't look past what I did, but he didn't jump to condemn me either. Her mother nodded slowly. Sounds like a man who's been through his own storms. Probably a few big ones. Good, Gloria replied softly. People who've known hardship are often the ones who understand mercy. Olivia's gaze drifted back to Zoe's room. I just don't want this to become another weight on her. Or on you. It won't, her mother said gently. You're stronger than you think. They sat in comfortable silence for a long moment. Eventually, Gloria turned off the small lamp beside her. Get some sleep, sweetheart. If tomorrow needs your strength, you'll need rest to meet it. Olivia rose from the couch and leaned down to kiss her mother's cheek. Good night, Mama. Good night, baby. She retreated into her bedroom. The sheets smelled of detergent and the lingering warmth of sunlight through the window. She sat on the edge of the bed, boots still on, staring at the wall as though expecting answers to appear. Her mind drifted to the boy quiet, perceptive, carrying a lifetime of unspoken experiences behind calm eyes. Then to his father, who had walked into the room ready to protect his son, but left with something that felt almost like compassion. The thought surprised her. She undressed, changed into soft cotton pajamas, and finally slid beneath the covers. For the first time in many nights, she didn't fall asleep from sheer exhaustion. Instead, she drifted slowly, gently, as though her body finally felt permission to let go. Her final thought before sleep reached her was simple. Maybe this is the beginning of something different. Not easy, not clean, but different. She welcomed the darkness then, not as an escape, but as a promise that morning would come. Her breathing steadied, her body softened, her heart quieted. Outside her window, a lone street lamp glowed like a beacon, and inside the small house, for the first time in a long while, peace settled without asking her to earn it. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains like a gentle reminder that the world kept moving, even if a person's heart had not quite caught up yet. Olivia blinked awake slowly, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of having slept deeply. No jolting alarms, no restless turning, no middle-of-the-night checking of schedules. The kind of sleep she hadn't tasted in months. For a moment, she stayed still, letting her body absorb the quiet. Her muscles felt heavy but refreshed, as if finally allowed to loosen after holding tension for far too long. Then she heard soft footsteps. A small knock sounded at her bedroom door. Mommy Zoe's voice drifted through the crack, soft, delicate, full of that hesitant gentleness Olivia knew too well. Come in, baby. Zoe pushed the door open, her messy curls sticking out at angles. Her penguin was tucked under her arm like always. She walked toward the bed and crawled up without needing an invitation. Olivia opened her arms and Zoe curled into her chest without a word. They stayed like that for a long time. You didn't wake me when you got home, Zoe finally murmured. I wanted you to sleep, Olivia replied softly. You looked peaceful. Zoe traced circles on her mother's arm, a calming pattern she often used on herself. Did you have a hard day? Olivia considered how to answer. Her daughter noticed everything, even if she didn't always express it in conventional ways. Honesty mattered. Yes, Olivia whispered. It was a very hard day. Zoe looked up, her eyebrows slightly pinched. But you came home. I did. And you're okay. I'm getting there. Zoe nodded, satisfied with that. Then she crawled out of the bed, tugging Olivia's hand gently. Can we have pancakes? A smile touched Olivia's lips. Of course, they moved to the kitchen together. The house was bright now, warmed by the soft sunlight creeping through the blinds. Gloria was already up, sitting at the table wrapped in her shawl, breathing steadily through her oxygen tube. She offered Olivia a knowing smile. "You look better," her mother said. "Just tired in a different way." Olivia replied. Zoe climbed onto a chair and began arranging her penguin and crayons with careful precision, while Olivia prepared breakfast. The sound of batter sizzling in the pan, the gentle clink of utensils, the low hum of the kitchen, all of it calmed her. It felt good to do something simple. Halfway through flipping the second pancake, her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a number she recognized immediately. Airline corporate office. Her breath caught for a second. Gloria noticed. "Answer it, sweetheart." Olivia wiped her hands on a towel before picking up the phone. "Hello, Ms. Reed. This is Director Elaine Patterson from the airline's HR and Safety Division. Do you have a moment to speak privately?" Olivia stiffened. "Yes. One moment." She stepped into the bedroom, closing the door quietly behind her. "I'm here," she said. Director Patterson's tone was professional but not cold. "First, I want to thank you for cooperating with all post-incident procedures yesterday. Captain Brooks and the cabin crew have given detailed accounts of what occurred." Olivia braced herself. "We have also spoken with Mr. Daniel Cole." Patterson continued. He was measured, respectful, and clear about his view that the situation was handled appropriately after landing. That surprised Olivia. He said that yes. Patterson confirmed. He emphasized that he did not perceive malicious intent. He also noted that you attempted to check on his son and expressed immediate remorse. Olivia swallowed a lump in her throat. "Given these statements," Patterson said, "the company will not pursue disciplinary termination." Olivia pressed a hand over her eyes, relief washing through her in soft waves. "But," Patterson added gently, "you will be placed on extended leave with pay. This is both for your well-being and to give our team time to complete internal documentation." "I understand," Olivia said quietly. "During this leave, you will undergo an employee wellness evaluation. This is standard. We will also offer counseling resources. You're not required to accept them, but we strongly encourage it." Olivia nodded even though the director couldn't see her. "I'll participate." "Good. And Ms. Reed, yes? This company has had you on the front lines for nearly 2 decades. You've served us well. We want to make sure you're supported now." The sincerity in her voice softened something fragile inside Olivia. "Thank you," she whispered. "We'll follow up with an email shortly." Patterson said, "Please take care." When the call ended, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, letting the relief settle through her like warmth spreading across cold skin. For the first time, she felt a sense of protection not because of Daniel's influence alone, but because the company actually seemed to recognize her years of loyalty. She exhaled slowly. When she returned to the kitchen, Gloria looked up from her tea. "Good news." "Not bad," Olivia answered with a tired smile. Zoe noticed. "Are you staying home today?" "Yes, and for a while." Zoe's face lit up in a way that tugged at Olivia's heart. "Can we draw together later?" "Absolutely." They finished breakfast, and afterward Olivia walked out to the small porch with a cup of coffee. She sat in the worn wooden chair that had belonged to her father years ago. The neighborhood was waking up, dogs barking in the distance, someone starting their car, kids waiting for the bus at the corner. Life moved, quietly, steadily. Her phone buzzed again, this time. The caller ID made her heart skip. Unknown number. But the formatting looked familiar. A corporate line, high level? She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Ms. Reed," a male voice said. "It's Daniel Cole. I hope I'm not calling too early." Her breath caught slightly. "No, not at all. I wanted to check in," he said. "Make sure you're okay after yesterday." She was struck by how genuine he sounded. Not scripted, not formal. "I'm doing better," she said softly. "I slept. That alone feels like a gift." "I'm glad," Daniel replied. "Jayden asked this morning if you were all right. He wanted me to tell you that he didn't have any nightmares." That simple detail nudged tears behind her eyes again. "Tell him I'm grateful," she whispered. "I will," Daniel said. Then, after a pause, "I also contacted your HR director this morning. I felt it was important to speak on your behalf." "I heard," Olivia murmured. "Thank you." He exhaled lightly. "I didn't help out of charity. Ms. Reed, I helped because I've been where you are. Overwhelmed, exhausted, afraid of making one mistake that could take everything away." His voice held a quiet truth, the kind a person doesn't reveal unless they've lived it deeply. "I know you have people depending on you," he continued, "but I hope you'll take this time seriously. Rest, heal. Don't rush back into the sky before you're ready." "I won't," she promised. Another soft pause lingered between them. "If you need anything," Daniel said gently, "I can help connect you with resources, medical support, financial guidance, whatever may lighten the load." Olivia swallowed, moved but conflicted. "I appreciate that, truly, but I can't rely on you like that. We barely know each other, and I don't want to take advantage of your not taking advantage," he said calmly. "You're a human being who had a moment, and I'm someone who understands moments like that." Her voice thinned. "Still, I have to stand on my own feet." Daniel's tone warmed. "Fair enough, but the offer stands." "Thank you," she whispered again. They ended the call gently. When Olivia lowered the phone, she sat in silence for a long while, feeling something unfamiliar growing inside her. Not dependence, not obligation, but connection. The kind that forms quietly, without intention, simply because one person sees another clearly. She lifted her gaze toward the sky, pale, endless, calm. Tomorrow would come with its own burdens. But today, she had space to breathe, and that was enough. The rest of the morning drifted by slowly, in a way Olivia hadn't felt in years. She moved through the house without urgency, folding blankets, rinsing dishes, straightening Zoe's toys. Each small task grounded her, pulling her away from the chaos of the previous day. Still, every few minutes, she found herself replaying Daniel's voice in her mind. His calm, his patience, his unexpected compassion. People didn't usually show grace when anger was justified. That alone sat heavily inside her chest, both comforting and unsettling. By noon, Zoe was coloring quietly at the kitchen table while Gloria rested in her recliner. The house hummed with a rare steadiness. Then the doorbell rang. Olivia froze for a second. Very few people visited unannounced. "Mama, stay seated," Olivia said quickly. "I'll get it." She opened the door to find a woman in her late 40s standing with a clipboard and a leather satchel. Her expression was warm but professional. "Ms. Reed?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm Dr. Savannah Blake. I'm with the airline's wellness team. We offer in-home evaluations when employees are placed on extended leave." She showed her ID. "Director Patterson wanted your assessment prioritized." Olivia blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected a same-day visit. "Of course, come in," Olivia said, stepping aside. Dr. Blake entered, offering a polite nod toward Gloria before taking a seat on the sofa. "I won't take much of your time," she said. "This is more of a conversation than anything clinical. We want to understand your stressors, your support system, and any areas where we can help." Olivia sat across from her, nerves stirring again. Dr. Blake noticed. "Don't worry," she said gently. "This isn't a test. There are no wrong answers." Olivia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Let's start with how you're feeling today." Dr. Blake said. Tired, Olivia admitted, but clearer. Emotionally more stable than yesterday, but still processing. Dr. Blake nodded, taking light notes. Can you tell me what led up to the moment on the flight? Olivia hesitated, then spoke with the same honesty she had given Daniel. She talked about the exhaustion, her mother's health, her daughter's needs, the rising financial pressure, the constant fear of failing at everything. As she spoke, her voice wavered at times, but she didn't break. When she finished, Dr. Blake exhaled softly. Olivia, that is an extraordinary amount for one person to hold. I didn't realize how heavy it was until yesterday. That's common. We don't notice weight until something forces us to stop carrying it. Olivia looked down at her intertwined fingers. I don't want the company to see me as unstable. No one is labeling you that, Dr. Blake said firmly. What we see is a long-serving employee who's been running on empty. You deserve support, not punishment. Olivia felt her throat tighten. I just don't want to lose my place in the world. Flying has always been home. Dr. Blake softened. You won't lose that. But you need to rest before returning to the sky. Otherwise, the work will break pieces of you that aren't easily rebuilt. The truth of those words settled deeply. Have you considered counseling, Dr. Blake continued? Real counseling. Not occasional check-ins, but structured support. Do you think I need it? I think you deserve it, the doctor said gently. You've given your strength to everyone else. It's time someone helps restore yours. Olivia swallowed hard. What would counseling even look like? A combination of stress management, emotional processing, and practical planning. Dr. Blake explained. And financial advisors can be brought in as well. We can help you map out care options for your mother and therapy options for Zoe. You don't have to figure it all out alone. The last sentence echoed Daniel's words from that morning. If you need anything, I can help connect you with resources. The idea of accepting help, real help, shook something loose inside her. She had spent so many years believing she needed to solve everything alone, but that belief had cost her more than she realized. I'm willing to try, Olivia said quietly. That's all I needed to hear. Dr. Blake replied. They finished the evaluation before leaving. Dr. Blake gently squeezed Olivia's shoulder. You are not defined by one moment, she said. Let this be the beginning of healing, not the summary of your story. After she left, Olivia stood by the doorway for a long moment, letting the words echo through her. When she returned to the living room, Gloria was watching her with a raised eyebrow. Well, it went better than I expected, Olivia said. They're offering real support, not just checking a box. Good, Gloria said. You deserve that. Olivia sat beside her mother. Do you think I've failed? Gloria shook her head. You've stumbled. That's human. Failure only happens when you stop standing back up. The simplicity of it cut through the heaviness in Olivia's chest. A few minutes later, Zoe ran in with a crayon drawing. Look, Mommy. It was a stick figure family under a blue sky. 3 figures holding hands. Olivia's voice softened. It's beautiful, baby. Zoe leaned against her. You look happier today. I'm trying it. That's good, Zoe said matter-of-factly. Trying is how people get better. Olivia kissed her forehead. You're very smart. I know, Zoe replied, returning to her art supplies. As the afternoon drifted into evening, Olivia found herself thinking about Daniel again. His voice had been gentle but firm. His concern hadn't felt like obligation, but understanding. And Jayden, quiet, thoughtful, perceptive, had shown forgiveness that went far beyond his years. She wondered what kind of pain Daniel had endured to teach his son compassion that deep. The thought lingered. Later, after dinner, while her mother rested and Zoe watched cartoons. Olivia stepped onto the porch. The air was cool, tinged with the smell of fresh rain lingering from a distant cloudburst. The world felt unusually still. Her phone buzzed. A text message. From Daniel. Just checking in. How are you holding up? Olivia's heart thudded softly. She typed back. Better today. Thank you for calling earlier. His response came almost instantly. You sounded like someone who needed a gentler morning. I was glad to help. She leaned against the porch railing, letting the words soak in. People didn't talk like that often, at least not to her. Not with sincerity woven between the lines. She typed, Zoe says thank you for asking about her. She's doing well today. Daniel replied, I'm glad. And Jayden wanted to tell you he hopes your day feels lighter tomorrow. Olivia smiled, warmth blooming quietly beneath her ribs. Thank him for me. Of course, Daniel wrote. And Olivia, yes. Take tomorrow for yourself, not for chores, not for responsibilities. For you. She stared at the message for a long moment. A person could get used to being spoken to like that carefully, consciously, like their well-being mattered. I'll try, she replied. Good. Came his final message, one step at a time. The screen dimmed, but Olivia didn't put the phone down right away. She let the moment settle, filling the quiet spaces inside her with something new. Not fear, not guilt, not exhaustion, but the faint beginning of possibility. Maybe healing didn't have to be solitary. Maybe connection wasn't weakness. Maybe two lives could cross during a moment of crisis and still find room to grow into something meaningful, something steadier on the other side. Under the soft glow of the porch light, Olivia whispered to herself, one step at a time. The next morning felt different before Olivia even opened her eyes. There was a strange stillness in the house, as if the air itself had been waiting for her to wake without rush, without fear of what the day might bring. She stretched slowly, letting her limbs loosen, letting her mind stay quiet for a moment longer. When she stepped into the hallway, the smell of oatmeal drifted from the kitchen. Zoe was humming softly as she stirred the pot, standing on a small stool to reach the stove. Gloria watched from the table, wrapped in her shawl, a gentle smile lifting her tired features. You're up later than usual, Gloria said. I'm learning, Olivia replied, brushing a kiss onto her mother's head. Zoe beamed proudly. I made breakfast. It smells amazing, Olivia said, rubbing her daughter's back. Thank you, baby. They ate together, talking in low voices. There was no rush, no frantic checking of her schedule, no backpack she needed to repack for the next flight. For the first time in years, morning felt like a beginning instead of a countdown. After breakfast, Gloria rested in her recliner again while Zoe watched a documentary about sea turtles. Olivia took a seat on the porch with her cup of tea, letting the sunlight warm her face. She felt lighter. Not healed yet, but lighter. Her phone buzzed gently against the railing. A message. From Daniel. I hope today is quiet for you. She smiled slightly and typed back. So far, it's shaping up to be one of the quietest days I've had in years. He replied almost immediately, You deserve a few of those. You deserve a few. What do you plan to do with the piece? Olivia thought for a moment before answering. I'm not sure. Maybe take Zoe to the park. Maybe rest. Maybe breathe for the first time in a long while. Sounds like a good plan. Daniel wrote, and if you need something to distract your mind, I'm at the office today, but free after 3. Olivia blinked at the message for a long moment. There was no pressure in his words, no expectation, just availability. Offered simply, gently, like a hand extended without asking for anything in return. I appreciate that, she replied. I'll let you know. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Olivia cleaned a little, checked on her mother, helped Zoe assemble a puzzle. Every so often, her mind drifted back to Daniel. Not because she felt indebted though she was, but because his presence lingered in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Calm, grounded, steady. Qualities that felt like a balm on the raw edges of her heart. Around noon, she got a call from HR confirming her leave schedule, the wellness resources available, and the start date for counseling sessions. The tone was respectful, supportive. It made something inside her relax even more. When she hung up, she found her mother watching her. "They're treating you well?" Gloria asked. "Yes," Olivia said. "Better than I expected?" "Good." Her mother replied, "Because you deserve to be treated like a human being, not a machine." Later in the afternoon, Olivia took Zoe to the park. The sun was warm but gentle, and the sound of children's laughter carried across the playground. Zoe stayed close at first, she always did in new spaces, but slowly began exploring the slides and swings. Olivia sat on a nearby bench. For a moment, watching her daughter under the bright light of day, she felt a profound gratitude that she still had this. That one terrible moment on a plane hadn't taken away everything she loved. Her phone buzzed again. "Daniel, if you're out and about today, there's a small cafe near Maple Street. Best iced tea in the city. I thought you might like it." Olivia looked around the park, then at the quiet in her chest. Maybe she could step outside her routine just a little. She typed, "We're at the park now. Might stop by the cafe on our way home." Daniel responded, "If you do, order the mint peach blend. Jayden swears it tastes like summer." The mention of Jayden brought a soft warmth to her chest. She still remembered the quiet bravery in his eyes, his unexpected empathy. She wondered how a boy so young had learned compassion so deep. She wondered how many storms his father had shielded him from. When Zoe tired of the playground, they walked to the cafe. It was small and simple, tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop. Olivia ordered 2 mint peach iced teas, one without ice for Zoe, who preferred her drinks room temperature. As they sat near the window, Zoe sipping her tea carefully, Olivia felt the strange sensation of normalcy settling over her, a kind of normal she hadn't experienced in so long. It felt new. "Mommy," Zoe said suddenly, "you're smiling." "I am," Olivia asked, surprised. "Yes." Zoe nodded. "A soft smile." Olivia laughed. "A soft one." "Yes," Zoe said. "The kind that means someone helped your heart." Olivia froze for a moment. Children noticed everything. "Who do you think helped me?" Olivia asked gently. Zoe shrugged, turning her cup slowly. "Sometimes help comes from people we don't expect." The simplicity of the statement hit Olivia like a quiet truth. They walked home as the afternoon faded. When they arrived, Gloria was napping. Zoe went to her room to draw, and Olivia stepped back onto the porch, letting the breeze kiss her face. Another message arrived. "Daniel, I'm off work now. How was your day?" Olivia felt her lips lift. "Peaceful," she replied. "And the tea was perfect." "Daniel, good. I hoped it would lift your spirits." And Olivia. "Yes, Daniel, I'm proud of you. Taking time for yourself isn't easy when you've spent years surviving instead of living." The message landed in her chest with a warmth she couldn't deny. She didn't feel judged. She didn't feel pitied. She felt seen. "Thank you," she typed. He responded, "Anytime. And I mean that." As evening settled, Olivia cooked dinner while Zoe colored at the table. Gloria hummed gently in the living room. The house felt full not of noise, but of life. And Olivia felt something rebuilding inside her, piece by piece. Later, once Zoe was asleep and the house had quieted, Olivia stepped outside one more time, and the sky was clear, dotted with stars. She breathed deeply, letting the cool night air steady her. She whispered into the dark, one step at a time. The words didn't feel like a reminder anymore. They felt like a promise she intended to keep. 2 days passed quietly, each hour unfolding with a gentleness Olivia hadn't known in years. She followed the rhythms of the house, tending to Zoe, helping Gloria with her medication, taking short walks around the block. Her mind remained busy, but her heart was no longer thrashing. It moved in slower currents now, carrying both pain and emerging clarity. On the third morning, as sunlight spilled softly through the living room blinds, Olivia received an unexpected call. "Director Elaine Patterson?" Olivia hesitated before answering, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Good morning, Director," she said. Good morning, Olivia. I hope I didn't interrupt anything. No, ma'am. I'm just tidying up. There was a pause on the other end, softer than Olivia anticipated. I reviewed Dr. Blake's report, Patterson said, as well as your employment record. I'd like to talk through next steps professionally and personally. Olivia felt her stomach tighten, but she steadied her voice. Of course. Would you be available to meet in person today? Patterson asked. I'd prefer a private conversation rather than a formal office setting. It wasn't what Olivia expected. Not even close. I can meet, she said carefully. Where would you like me to go? There's a small meeting space near the downtown library, Patterson said. Neutral, quiet, comfortable. Olivia nodded to herself. I can be there? Good. I believe this conversation will help give you more certainty about what comes next. After the call, Olivia stood still for a moment, feeling reality shift beneath her feet. Gloria noticed immediately. What is it? Her mother asked. A meeting with Director Patterson. Today. Does she sound angry? No, Olivia said truthfully. She sounded understanding. Gloria reached for her hand. Whatever happens, you face it with the strength you've always had. Olivia kissed her mother's cheek. I'll try. She prepared quickly, brushing her hair back, smoothing the faint creases in her blouse. Zoe gave her a tight hug before she left. Mommy, come back soon. I will, baby. When she stepped outside, the world felt both larger and sharper. The walk to the bus stop felt longer than usual, each step echoing with questions she didn't know how to answer. The meeting space Patterson chose was softly lit, furnished with cushioned chairs and wooden shelves lined with books. Patterson was already seated, her posture straight but not rigid. Thank you for coming. Olivia, she said, rising to greet her. Olivia sat carefully across from her. Thank you for meeting me. Patterson folded her hands. I'll be direct but gentle. We value you. Olivia. Our review makes that clear. Olivia blinked, slightly stunned. Your years of service, your evaluations, your reputation among staff, they all speak strongly in your favor. Patterson continued. What happened on the flight cannot be minimized, but it must be contextualized. Olivia swallowed. I understand. I don't think you do, Patterson said softly. You've been carrying so much for so long that even your own worth has become blurry. You're not a liability to us. You are a person under strain who made a human mistake. The words felt both comforting and painful. Your leave will continue as part of the wellness program, Patterson said. But I want to discuss something else. Olivia leaned slightly forward. Her pulse quickened. Patterson took a slow breath. On the day of the incident, Mr. Cole contacted me. Olivia froze. He didn't call to demand discipline, Patterson said. He called to advocate for you. Olivia's breath caught. He asked us to handle the situation with compassion. He made it very clear that he did not believe you were a danger. He also told us unprompted that he and his son forgave you. Olivia blinked hard, fighting the sting behind her eyes. She had expected neutrality from the airline, not kindness, and she certainly hadn't expected Daniel to intervene on her behalf. He described the look on your face during and after the incident, Patterson said. And he said something I found telling. Olivia waited. He said, that moment broke her. Not my son. Olivia's lips parted silently. Her chest tightened in a way she couldn't quite control. He told us that people under enormous pressure sometimes fracture, that what matters is how they rebuild. Patterson's expression softened. He said you deserved a chance to rebuild. Olivia held her breath. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry for everything that happened. I know, Patterson said. But remorse isn't your burden alone. Responsibility isn't a punishment. It's a path forward. And you're walking it. The shame that had been coiled inside Olivia for days loosened just enough for her to breathe again. Patterson continued, "After your wellness period, we will reassess your return. Not to punish, but to ensure you're ready. You'll have support, structured recovery, and a slower reintegration schedule when the time comes." Olivia felt the relief wash through her like warm water. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "You earned this compassion," Patterson said, "not through perfection, but through honesty." A quiet settled between them. Eventually, Patterson stood. "One more thing." Olivia rose as well. "Mr. Cole asked me for permission to reach out to you personally, outside of airline communication." Patterson gave a small smile. "Given the circumstances, I told him the choice is yours." Olivia's heartbeat faltered, not with fear, but with something far more fragile. "I'll think about it," she said softly. Patterson nodded. "That's all I ask." When Olivia left the meeting space, she stopped outside the door and pressed her palm to her chest. Daniel had stepped into a storm he didn't owe her, and rather than leaving her in it, he had helped her navigate out. As she walked back toward the bus stop, she saw a bench near the sidewalk and sat down, letting the afternoon breeze brush over her. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Daniel, I was told you had a meeting today. You don't have to tell me anything, but I wanted you to know I've been hoping it goes your way." Olivia exhaled, touched in a place words rarely reached. "It went better than I imagined," she replied. A moment passed before he answered. "Good. You deserve steady ground." She hesitated, then typed, Director Patterson said you spoke to her." Daniel responded, "Yes, I didn't want one moment to erase the woman I saw in front of me after it happened." A moment doesn't define a person's whole character. Olivia closed her eyes as warmth gathered in her chest. "Thank you," she wrote. His reply was immediate. "You don't owe me thanks. You owe yourself gentleness." She leaned back against the bench, feeling something inside her shift. Trust was growing, cautiously, gradually, but undeniably. Another message appeared. "If you're open to it, I'd like to talk sometime. Not about the incident, about anything else. Life, people, hope, whatever you need." Olivia read the message twice, then again, slower. She typed, "I think I'd like that." As she walked home, the world looked a little brighter, a little less heavy, a little more possible. Maybe healing began not with forgetting the pain, but with finding someone who didn't turn away from it. And for the first time since the sky cracked open on that plane, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope, quiet, steady, real. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the street when Olivia reached her house. The warmth on her skin felt different today, as if the world was easing its grip on her. She paused at the porch, letting the cool breeze brush through her hair before pushing the door open. Inside, Zoe sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing a picture of a tall tree with wide branches. Gloria dozed lightly in her recliner, the soft hum of the oxygen machine punctuating the quiet. Zoe looked up immediately. "Mommy, you're home." Olivia knelt to hug her daughter. "Yes, baby. I'm home." Zoe examined her face with curious eyes. "You look brighter." Olivia laughed softly. "Do I like you got good news?" She smiled and kissed Zoe's cheek. It was a good meeting. Zoe nodded, satisfied, and returned to her drawing. Olivia stood and hung her bag on the hook near the door, feeling a strange calm settle in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of direction, not perfect, not certain, but real. She checked on her mother next. Gloria stirred. "How did it go?" "Better than I feared? Better than I hoped?" "Then let yourself breathe," her mother murmured, eyes softening. "You've earned a moment of peace." Olivia brushed a stray hair from her mother's forehead. Rest. Mama, I'll make dinner in a bit. For the next hour, she cooked quietly chicken, jasmine rice, roasted carrots. The simple movements soothed her, grounding her mind. Every few minutes, her phone lit up with thoughtfulness. Let me know if you need anything. Proud of you today. Be gentle with yourself. All from Daniel. Not intrusive, not demanding, just present. And presence, she realized, was something she hadn't felt from another adult in years. After dinner, when the house settled into evening rhythms, Zoe danced around the living room with her stuffed penguin while Gloria watched with soft delight. Olivia cleaned up the plates, humming under her breath. Her phone buzzed again. Daniel, if you're free tonight, I'd like to talk. Only if you feel up to it. Olivia read the message twice, then leaned against the counter. A small, warm ripple moved through her chest. She typed back, "Give me a few minutes to settle Zoe and check on my mother." His response came quickly. "Take your time. I'm here." She tucked the phone into her pocket and gathered Zoe in her arms. Bedtime? Baby. Zoe pouted lightly. "Can I finish the leaves on my tree first tomorrow?" Olivia said. "The tree will wait." Zoe nodded and followed her down the hallway. Olivia read her a short story, rubbing her hair until the little girl's breathing deepened and grew soft. She kissed her forehead gently. Sweet dreams. Next, she checked on her mother. Gloria smiled knowingly. "Someone waiting to talk to you?" Olivia sat on the edge of the recliner. "Just someone checking in." "You don't have to play small anymore," her mother whispered. "You can accept kindness when it finds you." Olivia lowered her head. "It scares me." "Of course it does. Anything real is frightening at first." She squeezed her mother's hand. "I'll be outside." "Go," Gloria whispered. "Let the world meet you halfway tonight." Olivia stepped onto the porch. The sky was painted with deep purple and soft gold, the first stars flickering awake. She held her phone in both hands, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. She pressed call. The line rang once, twice. Then Daniel's voice warm. Steady appeared through the speaker. "Hey, Olivia." A smile touched her lips. "Hi, I wasn't sure if you'd call." "I needed to," she said quietly. "Today was a lot. I guessed as much. Want to tell me about it?" Olivia sat on the porch steps, her back against the railing. She began slowly, telling him about the meeting, about Patterson's words, about the mixture of relief and vulnerability that followed. Daniel listened without interrupting, the soft exhale on the line letting her know he was absorbing each piece. When she finished, there was a brief stillness. "I'm glad she saw you clearly," Daniel said. "You deserve that." "I still feel guilty," Olivia whispered. "Even with everything she's said, guilt can exist alongside growth," Daniel replied. "But it shouldn't suffocate you. What happened doesn't define you." Olivia looked up at the stars, her voice quiet. "You've done more for me than you realize." "I'm not trying to rescue you," he said gently. "I just understand what it feels like to be crushed by expectations you didn't ask for." Her breath caught. Something in the way he said it told her he wasn't speaking theoretically. "What happened to you?" she asked softly. A long pause followed. Not hesitation, consideration. "I grew up watching my mother work 3 jobs," Daniel began. "People looked at her and expected failure. They assumed my father's absence was all they needed to know. Teachers looked at me the same way. Low expectations. Low hope." Olivia listened, heart tightening. "When I started building my first business," Daniel continued, "banks brushed me off. Investors ignored me. A few told me outright that they didn't think someone like me could handle the pressure." "Someone like you," she echoed. "A black man with ambition," he said. Voice steady. "People assumed I'd break. They didn't expect strength, or discipline, or success." Olivia felt a deep, painful understanding bloom inside her. You fought for every inch. Yes, he said, and I watched my mother break in places no one could see. She held everything together until her body couldn't anymore. A breath. That's why your story hit me so deeply. I recognized the look in your eyes, the exhaustion that hides behind commitment. Olivia pressed her hand against her chest, the memory of that moment on the plane rising, the terror, the regret, the collapse. You didn't know me, she whispered, but you saw me. I saw your strength. Daniel replied, real strength, the kind built from sacrifice, not opportunity. She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle. Thank you for calling Patterson, for advocating for me, for everything. You don't owe me gratitude, Daniel said. I wanted to make sure justice, not rage, guided the outcome. Something in her cracked open then, not from pain, but from relief. Daniel, she said softly, can I ask you something? Anything, Anna, why are you being so kind to me? There was no hesitation this time. Because you're worth being kind to, he said simply. And because you deserve someone in your corner for once? Olivia swallowed hard. It feels strange. That's how you know it's real, Daniel said quietly. Silence held them for a moment, warm, steady, alive. Then he added, and Olivia, this doesn't have to end with phone calls. Her breath stilled. If you ever want to meet outside all the noise, he said gently. I would like that. She didn't speak for several seconds, letting the offer settle into the fragile parts of her heart. Part of her was terrified. Another part, a deeper, braver part, felt ready to step toward something new. I think I'd like that too, she whispered. Daniel's voice warmed. Good. We'll take it one day at a time. One day at a time, she echoed. When the call ended, Olivia didn't move. She sat under the glow of the porch light, feeling the weight of the world rearrange itself. For the first time in years, she felt seen. For the first time in years, she felt chosen. For the first time in years, she felt hope blooming quietly inside her. Tomorrow remained uncertain, but tonight was hers. The morning after her conversation with Daniel arrived with a fragile brightness. Olivia woke slowly, blinking against the soft light filtering through the curtains. Her mind drifted back to the night before, the softness in his voice, the steadiness beneath every word, the unexpected warmth that had lingered long after the call ended. She touched her fingertips to her cheek, surprised by the ease in her breathing. As she stepped into the hallway, she found Zoe already awake, sprawled across the living room rug with her crayons. Gloria sat nearby with a cup of warm tea, her eyes alert despite the gentle rise and fall of her chest. You were smiling in your sleep, Gloria murmured. Olivia paused. Was I? Yes, her mother said with a knowing look. The kind of smile that comes from something good. Olivia didn't confirm or deny it. She simply kissed her mother's forehead and went to prepare breakfast. She didn't need to speak the truth out loud for it to be real. Throughout the morning, her thoughts drifted toward Daniel more often than she wanted to admit. She wasn't used to someone checking in without expecting something in return. She wasn't used to conversations that felt like a safe place rather than a minefield. She carried that warmth with her as she swept the kitchen floor and helped Zoe braid her hair. Each small moment felt lighter, softened by something she couldn't quite name. Around lunchtime, her phone buzzed. Daniel, I hope today is gentle on you. She stared at the message for a long moment before replying. So far, it is Daniel good. Would you be open to meeting this weekend? Maybe a walk or coffee, no pressure. Just space to breathe and talk. Olivia's heart kicked softly in her chest. She set the phone down. Breathing slowly, the idea of spending time with him face to face was both comforting and terrifying. Her mother noticed her stillness. You're holding your breath, Gloria said gently. A little, Olivia admitted. Daniel wants to meet. Do you want to? I think so. she whispered. But it feels strange. I don't know what to expect. Honey, Gloria said, reaching for her hand. Good things always feel strange when you aren't used to receiving them. Olivia exhaled softly. I don't want to misread his intentions. What did his words sound like to you, Steady? Respectful? Warm? Then trust your instincts. Her mother replied. They've carried you through storms much harsher than this. Olivia nodded, comforted but still hesitant. That afternoon, an unexpected knock came at the door. She opened it to find Elena Torres, the co-worker who had been with her on the flight, the woman who had held her trembling shoulders after the incident. Elena stood with a simple tote bag and a worried expression. Olivia, Elena said softly, I've been thinking about you. A wave of surprise washed over Olivia. She stepped aside. Come in. Zoe greeted Elena with a shy wave before retreating to her room. Gloria smiled kindly from her recliner. Elena sat on the couch, the weight in her posture clear. I should have checked on you sooner. I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I didn't want you to feel abandoned either. You didn't, Olivia said gently. I'm grateful you're here. For a moment, Elena studied her hands. I replayed the flight 100 times in my head. I tried to imagine what I could have done differently, what signs I missed. You didn't miss anything, Olivia said. You were steady. You were calm. You were exactly who I needed. Elena's voice wavered with relief. Thank you. They talked quietly for over an hour. Elena shared her fear of how the company would handle the investigation. Olivia described her meeting with Director Patterson, how compassion had shaped the outcome. Elena seemed visibly relieved. I'm glad, Elena said. You deserve grace. Not everyone thinks so, Olivia murmured. Elena reached out, touching her wrist. People who've never carried real burdens are often the loudest with judgment. Olivia felt the truth of it settle into her chest. Eventually, Elena stood. I won't stay longer. I just wanted you to know you aren't alone. And when you return to the skies, I'll be right there beside you. Olivia hugged her gently. Thank you. After Elena left, the house felt full, not with noise, but with support she had never expected. Later that evening, Zoe colored quietly while Gloria rested. Olivia walked onto the porch to breathe in the cooling air. Her phone buzzed again. Daniel, hope your day unfolded with some ease. Olivia typed slowly. It did. Elena visited. It meant a lot. Daniel, I'm glad you have people in your corner. You deserve a team, not just burdens. She leaned against the porch railing, letting his words soften her. Then another message arrived. Daniel, I know this might feel new, but I want you to know something clearly. I'm not approaching you out of pity. I'm approaching you out of respect and interest. Real interest. Olivia's breath caught. She typed carefully. Interest. Daniel's answer was steady. Interest in knowing you beyond your pain, beyond your role, beyond that moment on the plane. I want to understand the woman who carries so much and still wakes up fighting every day. Olivia pressed a hand to her mouth, the warmth rising inside her almost too much to contain. No one had said anything like that to her in years, maybe ever. She replied, I don't know what to say. Daniel, you don't have to say anything yet. Just know my intentions aren't vague. I respect your pace. She read the message 3 times, each reading steadying her more. After a few minutes, she typed, I'd like to meet. This weekend. Somewhere quiet. Daniel's response came quickly, but not rushed. Name the place and the time. I want you to choose what feels safe. She closed her eyes, letting the cool night air fill her lungs. There was a small park near the river, peaceful and open. She had taken Zoe there once. The benches faced the water, and the afternoon sunlight shimmered across the surface like a living thing. She typed the Riverbend Park. Sunday afternoon. Daniel replied, I'll be there. And Olivia, thank you for trusting me with your time. She lowered the phone slowly. Trust wasn't something she gave easily. But something about Daniel, his steadiness, his gentleness made her believe she could step forward without losing herself. When she returned inside, she checked on her mother, who pretended to be half asleep but had clearly heard enough to guess the truth. Sunday. Huh, Gloria whispered, eyes twinkling. Olivia blushed. Mama. Her mother reached out, squeezing her hand with surprising strength. Healing comes in many forms. Sweetheart, sometimes it has a voice and sometimes it has a steady heart. Sometimes it arrives dressed as a man who has walked through his own fire. Olivia swallowed hard. I'm scared. Of course you are, Gloria said. But fear doesn't mean danger. Sometimes it means possibility. Olivia nodded, emotion pressing at her throat. I want to be ready. You don't have to be ready, her mother whispered. You only have to be open. That night, after Zoe fell asleep and the house grew quiet, Olivia stood at her bedroom window, watching the distant glow of city lights. The world felt vast and unfamiliar again, but in a way that stirred something hopeful deep within her. She whispered into the quiet one step at a time. And for the first time since the incident, the path ahead didn't look like a burden. It looked like the beginning of something new. Sunday arrived with a soft wind and a muted sky, the kind of morning that felt suspended between seasons. Olivia woke before her alarm, her heart steady but alert. She sat up slowly, letting the quiet room settle around her. Today held weight, not the crushing kind she had carried for years, but a new weight, an unfamiliar blend of hope and caution. She reached for the curtains and pulled them open. Sunlight spilled gently across her floorboards, stretching toward her feet like an invitation. In the hallway, Zoe was humming while brushing her hair. Gloria was already awake, sitting upright in her recliner with a knitted blanket over her lap. You're up early, Gloria said, her eyes bright with understanding. I couldn't sleep much, Olivia admitted. My mind kept running circles. That's normal, her mother whispered. New beginnings make the heart restless. Olivia knelt beside her. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing a brave thing, Gloria said. And sometimes bravery is the only way to step out of survival. Olivia kissed her mother's cheek and went to prepare breakfast. She moved deliberately, her hands steady. Even Zoe sensed the difference. She watched her mother closely as she ate. Mommy, Zoe said suddenly, will you tell me about him when you get home? Olivia paused. About who? The man who makes you smile with your eyes. The comment stunned her into silence. Children, she realized, saw truths adults tried to hide from themselves. I'll tell you whatever you want to know, she said gently. By early afternoon, she changed into a soft blue sweater and dark jeans, simple but neat. She tied her curls back loosely, wanting to feel like herself, nothing more, nothing less. Before she left, her mother reached for her hand. Let whatever happens unfold naturally, Gloria whispered. Don't force the moment. Don't run from it either. I'll try, Olivia said. You'll do just fine. She hugged Zoe tightly. I'll be back before dinner. Be safe, the little girl said, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. I will. The bus ride to Riverbend Park was quiet. Olivia watched the city pass by people walking dogs, couples holding hands, kids chasing each other on scooters. Ordinary scenes of ordinary lives. For years. She had felt like she was looking at these moments from behind glass, unable to join them. Today, for the first time, she felt the barrier thinning. When she reached the park, sunlight shimmered across the river like scattered coins. A few joggers passed. A couple sat under a willow tree, sharing lunch from a paper bag. The breeze carried the fresh scent of water and cut grass. She spotted Daniel near one of the benches facing the river. He stood with his hands in his pockets, gazing at the water with a calm expression. The wind brushed against his dark jacket, lifting the edges slightly. He looked grounded, effortlessly composed, yet softened by the golden light. When he turned and saw her, his face warmed immediately. "Olivia," he said, his voice strong but gentle. "I'm glad you came." She approached slowly. "I wasn't sure I would until this morning." "What changed?" he asked. My heart finally told my fear to sit down for a minute. Daniel smiled, understanding instantly. "Then I'm honored to be here for that moment." They sat on the bench together, leaving just enough space for the air to breathe between them. Not awkward, not distant, simply respectful. For several seconds, they watched the river move in slow ripples. "How are you feeling?" Daniel asked. "Nervous. Curious. Lighter," she said truthfully. "You grateful," he replied, "and relieved that you agreed to meet." She looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly with humor. "Relieved." "Yes," he said with a small laugh. "You're not an easy woman to predict. I've heard that before. It's not a criticism. It's refreshing." They fell into a comfortable silence again. Then Daniel spoke more quietly. "I didn't want our connection to end with a crisis. I didn't want the incident to be the only chapter we share." Olivia took a slow breath. "I didn't either, but I wasn't sure I deserved anything more." "You do," he said firmly. "Everyone makes mistakes, but very few have the courage to look at them honestly. You did." She turned her gaze back to the river. "It still haunts me sometimes." "Of course," Daniel said. "But healing isn't linear. It's a slow rebuilding." She nodded. "How's Jayden doing well?" Daniel answered. "He asked if you were okay. He worries more than he lets on." Olivia's chest tightened at the tenderness in his voice. "He's a remarkable boy." "He had to grow up faster than I wanted," Daniel said quietly. "His mother passed when he was 6. Olivia's eyes softened with sorrow. "I'm so sorry." Daniel nodded, looking at the water. "I learned a lot about what pain turns people into, and what support can turn them back from." She absorbed his words, feeling them carve a place in her heart. "Daniel," she began, "what is it you want from this, from us talking?" He didn't hesitate. "Honesty. A chance to know you. A chance to let something genuine grow without pressure." He turned slightly toward her. "I'm not offering rescue. I'm offering companionship if you want it." Olivia felt the air around her shift. Something warm unfurled beneath her ribcage. "I want to know you too," she said quietly. "Not as the man who defended me. Not as the father on the flight. Just you." Daniel's eyes softened. "Then we're on the same page." A long breath escaped her lips, one she seemed to have been holding for years. They talked for almost an hour after that about childhood memories, about the realities of raising kids alone, about ambition, about exhaustion, about faith and doubt and the small victories that kept them going. Olivia found herself laughing at moments, surprised by how easily her guard lowered around him. Daniel shared stories of his early business struggles, the doors that were closed on him, the ones he had to build himself. "You're stronger than people realize," she murmured at one point. "So are you," he replied. "I saw it the moment you stood trembling but didn't lie about what happened." A gentle quiet followed. "Eventually," Daniel asked, "can I walk you home or part of the way?" Olivia considered it. Then she shook her head softly. "Not today." Daniel nodded with full understanding. "All right. But," she added, "I'd like to meet again. Soon." A slow smile spread across his face. "I'd like that very much." They stood from the bench. The wind brushed their clothes softly, and the river glimmered behind them like a witness to a small transformation. As they walked toward the park entrance, Daniel reached out not to grab her, not to pull her closer, but to gently touch her elbow for a brief, respectful second. The touch was light, but its meaning was steady. Before parting, Daniel said, "You're walking a hard path. Olivia, but you're not walking it alone anymore." Her breath trembled. I believe you. Good, he said softly. Because I intend to keep showing up. She nodded, letting the promise settle in her bones. When she returned home, Zoe ran to her immediately. How was it Olivia lifted her daughter into her arms? It was good. Gloria watched with a knowing smile. Sometimes the river carries away pain, she murmured. Sometimes it brings something back. That evening, as Olivia stood at her bedroom window, she whispered the same words that had become her quiet vow, one step at a time. And for the first time since the moment everything fell apart, she knew she was finally moving towards something brighter. Not perfect, not guaranteed, but full of possibility. Healing wasn't abstract anymore. It had a voice. It had a presence. It had a name. Daniel Cole. Olivia's story reminds us that even the strongest people sometimes carry unseen fatigue. Life doesn't always allow us to be vulnerable. However, silent exhaustion can push anyone to moments of losing themselves. What matters is not how we stumble, but how we get up, face it, and learn to love ourselves again. From that story, we also understand one more thing. Empathy is stronger than judgment. Jayden's father, the man who has gone through many broken hearts, chose kindness over power. He saw the human, the wounded, the fragile part in Olivia, and sometimes just one person looking at us without judging us can make life much less heavy. Older people, one who have experienced all the ups and downs, will understand best we all have times when we are tired, make mistakes, and need a handshake instead of a scolding word. Be gentle with yourself, and be tolerant with the hearts that are trying every day. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you find this content meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that we have the motivation to bring you many more healing stories.